So as you can see here, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, former President Donald Trump. And today I want to talk about something I've always found interesting about Donald Trump, and that was his, well, he's not dead, I'm not going to say was, that is his approach to politics, which is populism. We know Trump for being one of the big populists in this country. He was probably the best example of that in modern America. And what he did was, in 2016, I'm sure we're all familiar with this, he said that Washington was corrupt and that it wasn't working for the average person, which is true. That's true. He said he was going to go in and drain the swamp, and it worked, and people voted for him, and yeah, he won the presidency. Obviously, he didn't. He wasn't reelected. And you know why? That's because he fucking lied, and he didn't do any of the shit he was going to say. I think we all knew that. But just to get everything down, so we're sure, let's look at some of the stuff Trump did as president. Because he said he was going to help the average person. He said he was going to drain the swamp. So let's see what he did to do that. In 2020, with his budget, he cut $1.5 trillion from Medicaid. He cut $220 billion from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP. Those are food stamps. He cut $21 billion from the temporary assistance for needy families. $207 billion cuts to the student loan program. And he lowered the lowered the corporate tax rate to 21%. And the reasoning behind this, we all know Trump did very well in the Rust Belt. He won Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Those are swing states. And part of the reason he did that is because he identified the issues with America's trade policy at the time. Well, basically the issues exist today, but he fought it. He quote unquote like fought against them at the time. He didn't like NAFTA, even though that's another thing. But I just want to identify this. So Trump cut corporate tax rates, and the idea behind that, the idea behind that is that if you cut corporate tax rates, corporations are going to want to stay in the country because they think that, oh, corporations will go to countries where they have lower taxes. America lowered the taxes, corporations still left. Factories in Ohio, automobile factories in Ohio still shut down. Workers lost their jobs, they got fucked over, and they were lied to by Trump. The reason for that is because when you lower the corporate tax rates, the money that corporations save, the money that they're not being that they don't pay in taxes, they use that money in buybacks, and what that means is they're buying their own stock to increase the value of the company. They're not opening up they don't use this money to open up factories. They use it to benefit themselves, to benefit the CEOs and the people at the top. That's what Trump did, and it didn't fix anything, and people still lost their jobs in the Rust Belt. And let's also talk about some of the people, because Trump wanted to drain the swamp. So let's talk about some of what Trump did against corruption. And let's talk about his pardons, because he pardoned a lot of people at the end of his presidency. And I think pardoning people could be good. Did he pardon nonviolent drug offenders? That could have been great. Yeah, pardon them. They don't deserve to be in prison. Oh, maybe he pardoned people on death row that didn't deserve to die. Well, yeah, did he do that? That would have been good. I would have pardoned people like that. No, he didn't do that. Of course he didn't do that. Who did he pardon, though? Randall Duke Cunningham was one man he pardoned. An ex-congressman from California. He was a Republican. And he was put in prison for accepting bribes. So that's a great way to drain the swamp, pardoning people who take bribes. That makes sense. But let's see another person he pardoned. Maybe that's just an anecdote. Maybe it's just one mistake he made. Kwame Kilpatrick, the former mayor of Detroit. Kilpatrick and his father took kickbacks and bribes to steer city business to certain contractors. Trump pardoned him. So the recurring thing we see on this list is that most of the people that were pardoned were, frankly, just like corrupt. And a lot of these people were money laundering, fraud, a variety of crimes, and Trump pardoned them. And I'm going to be fair. There were a few people on this list that were pardoned for nonviolent drug crimes, but I would mention that I think probably everyone in this list, the reason they're pardoned is because they gave Trump money. They're selling pardons. Giuliani requested an aide of Giuliani, not Giuliani himself, because he has to have other people do his dirty work. Wanted $2 million, I think, for a pardon for the CIA whistleblower. The whistleblower, I don't think gave it to him, but yeah, they are selling pardons. They're not just say, oh yeah, these people are in prison for like a nonviolent drug offense. Let's pardon them. They're getting money for this. So remember that. And the moral of the story here is, well, this is very short. These are I just want to establish, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the shit that Trump did. If we looked at everything, it would just get worse. Like the more you dig in, the worse it gets. That's the way it is with politics a lot of the time, with almost all politicians, not just Trump. But I think Trump to a greater extent. And it's obvious, this guy lied to the people of this country. He fucked them over. He fucked over the working people of this country. And that's something that tends to happen under both parties. Maybe a little bit less with the Democrats sometimes. And he didn't end corruption, and he made it worse. He's so obviously corrupt. Selling pardons is the definition of corruption. Pardoning criminals who took bribes, criminal politicians who took bribes. This guy ran on fighting against corrupt people in Washington, corrupt politicians in Washington, and while he's on his way out, the motherfucker is pardoning these people. So I don't want to fucking hear it from conservatives that like this guy fought against corruption and that he was like some fucking like outsider anti-corruption crusader like they make him out to be. This guy's a fucking piece of shit. How fucking dumb do you have to be to think that this guy gives a shit about the average person? This guy's a fucking narcissist, and he goes wherever the fucking money is, whoever will pay him the most. He's a little fucking bitch, and he's a fucking piece of shit. And, the sad thing is that his supporters are never gonna fucking see for this. I hope some of them do. But this whole thing that he's this populist hero is bullshit. And the Republican Party really hasn't changed that much. Really, what happened is, people were getting tired of the same old shit. People always get fucked over in the system, and they want something new. So what they did is they put forward, the Republican Party put forward the same old shit, which is Trump, just with a new face, the face of an outsider. This guy who speaks in the vernacular. He doesn't speak with all that fucking political jargon. He speaks like a fucking normal person. He speaks his mind, but he does the same shit. He fucks people over just as much, if not more, as Bush did, as Obama did. So I really hope that, we can learn, or his supporters really could learn from his presidency, that he never looked out for the average person, and he never wanted to end corruption.